There was nothing about her brand that was good from the start to a distinguishing eye. She was a fraud, what I can see from the beginning, who was just using opportunities to advance her.
Meghan Markle is in the headlines once again for really probably having the worst brand execution to date.
Imagine this, a boardroom deep inside Netflix headquarters, blinds pulled shut, coffee going cold, and the room once filled with quiet anticipation now crackling with disbelief. At the center of it all, one name, Meghan Markle, but not the Duchess you remember, not the polished podcast host or the red carpet activist. No, this is Meghan unleashed. The rebel royal turned rogue filmmaker. Whispers echo through the halls like ripples after a stone hits water. Did you see it? Is this real? Because what Meghan just did, what she filmed, where she filmed it, and how she plans to release it, has everyone scrambling. Executives are fuming, lawyers are on standby, and even her most loyal fans, they're confused. You might think you've seen chaos before, but trust me, you haven't seen this. Because Meghan Markle didn't just break the rules. She walked into the lion's den, lit a match, and dared the world to watch her burn it down. And now, with the countdown to September ticking louder by the day, the only question left is this a power move or a public implosion dressed up in pearls and protest? Once upon a time, not long after she and Prince Harry stepped away from the royal balcony and into California sun, Meghan Markle was handed a dream, a glittering multi-million-dollar Netflix deal, a golden ticket dipped in Hollywood gloss and royal intrigue. The expectations? Sky high. She wasn't just signing a contract, she was stepping into the power chair. Producer, creator, voice for the voiceless. At least that was the pitch. Meghan would finally get to tell her story, her way, unfiltered, uninterrupted, undeniably hers. Executives smiled for the cameras. Paparazzi captured the celebratory dinners. Industry headlines crowned her the next mogul in the making. But the fairy tale frayed fast. Behind closed doors, deadlines slipped, creative visions clashed. And while Meghan envisioned revolutionary content, Netflix wanted results, audience numbers, engagement spikes, something more than headlines and high hopes. Her projects trickled in with lukewarm reception. The hype that once echoed through boardrooms slowly faded to hesitation. The internal temperature cooled. By summer 2025, the whispers turned to meetings, and those meetings led to one final decision. No renewal, no soft goodbye, just a hard stop. Ted Sarandos and Greg Peters, the top brass, delivered the verdict straight. The deal? Terminating after September. Zero negotiations, zero cushion, zero chance of revival. For most in Hollywood, this would have been the moment to pivot, rebrand quietly, protect the brand. But Meghan didn't go silent. She went louder. And in the ashes of that collapsed contract, she didn't just plot a comeback. She planned a spectacle. When the ink dried on Meghan's Netflix contract cancellation, most expected silence, a quiet retreat, maybe a graceful pivot. But silence isn't Meghan's language. Instead, she lit a fuse. Whispers started surfacing about a mystery project, not a podcast, not a docuseries, but something far more chaotic and far more personal. A secret video, shot in parts, edited in shadows, designed not for mass appeal, but for impact, for headlines, for confrontation. At first, it was just a rumor. A Meghan strikes back whisper bouncing between interns and tabloid editors. But then came the footage. Leaked, grainy, bizarre. There she was, Meghan Markle storming through a hallway in a boxy pantsuit, a fake cigar dangling from her lips, barking orders at a group of friends dressed like office assistants. The whole thing set to a hip-hop track about misogyny and toxic masculinity. The lyrics? Sharp, confrontational. The tone? Satirical but not quite funny, more uncomfortable than clever. And then, the jaw-dropper. It was shot, at least in part, inside Netflix headquarters, without permission. No clearance, no schedule, no warning. Just Meghan and her crew, rolling in guerrilla style with choreography, props, a music track, and zero regard for protocol. One exec later called it performance art meets corporate trespass. Another called it delusional. Netflix didn't even know until the footage started circulating internally like a rogue TikTok challenge. By the time legal got involved, it was already too late. The video existed. And Meghan, she wasn't backing down. Sources say she'd been planning this for months, even while still under contract. She hired an indie songwriting team to help craft a protest anthem. She storyboarded it herself. She directed it, starred in it, edited it, all while her Netflix deal was still technically active. And when the footage started surfacing, instead of apologizing, she doubled down. Her team scheduled a release. Target month, September, the exact moment her contract expires. The statement couldn't be clearer. Meghan wasn't leaving quietly. She was going out swinging. They even began contacting gossip blogs, social justice influencers, and alt-media outlets, pitching the video as a brave takedown of Hollywood's old guard. One publicist called it her lemonade. Another likened it to a feminist sledgehammer aimed straight at the system. But from the outside, it didn't look like liberation. It looked like a meltdown wrapped in empowerment hashtags. Netflix's legal team acted fast. Letters were sent, clauses cited, terms violated, warnings fired off. But Meghan's camp? They answered with what one insider described as smirks and emojis. It was clear they saw the backlash not as a threat, but as fuel. And in doing so, they didn't just raise eyebrows. They detonated a PR minefield. Hollywood has seen drama. It's baked into its DNA. But even by its own theatrical standards, Meghan's latest move left insiders stunned. Not stunned like applause. Stunned like a slap in a silent room. The response from the industry was swift and brutal. Jens, who once rushed to take her calls, now let them go to voicemail. Casting directors started removing her name from shortlists before meetings even began. One top producer, speaking anonymously, summed it up in 7 chilling words. She brings drama without the ratings. Next. Behind studio doors, the mood shifted fast. Meghan's name wasn't just radioactive. It was exhausting. For an industry where optics matter more than outcomes, the last thing anyone wanted was to gamble their PR budget on a walking headline machine. It wasn't just the unauthorized filming, it was the attitude, the defiance, the smugness, the idea that you could mock the very system you're still asking favors from. Executives weren't amused by her performance in the hallway. They weren't clapping at the parody of old white suits choking dreams. They were reviewing contracts, whispering about precedent, and asking themselves the real question. If she did this to Netflix, what would she do to us? Even her supporters, the feminist commentators, the lifestyle columnists, the former staffers who once defended her against royal fallout, began to drift, and some offered silence. Others gently rephrased, maybe this wasn't the right moment. A few quietly admitted the unthinkable. She's lost the room. In Hollywood, timing is everything. And Meghan's timing? It couldn't have been worse. Because this wasn't just one video. This was a pattern. The Spotify fallout, the podcast that vanished, the children's book that made a brief splash before disappearing into the ether. Now this rogue campaign video, and flashy, expensive, and wrapped in chaos. It all screamed the same thing, unpredictability. And in an industry built on control, nothing is deadlier than being branded unmanageable. To Meghan and her inner circle, this video was never just content. It was a statement, a reclamation, a rebellion, a reintroduction to a world that, in her view, had misunderstood and misused her. Her lemonade, whispered one team member. A Barbie-level protest, another claimed, referencing Greta Gerwig's candy-coated, sharp-edged satire. Meghan wasn't just mocking power structures. She was, in their eyes, dismantling them. The song lyrics took direct aim. Old white suits choking dreams. Boardroom boys with padded egos. Watch me rewrite your ending. There were close-ups of Meghan stomping confidently down hallways, smoke curling from her prop cigar, side-eyeing the camera like a woman possessed, or a woman reborn. But outside her echo chamber, the reception landed like a thud. Viewers didn't see revolution. They saw confusion, a parody with no punchline, A satire so on the nose, it felt more like a high school media project than a sharp social commentary. Critics weren't kind. One columnist likened it to a rejected SNL sketch that got lost on the way to YouTube. Another labeled it tone-deaf cosplay with $1 million budget. Even some of Meghan's fans admitted, in corners of Reddit and private discords, that the message was getting lost in the noise. Was it feminism? Was it comedy? Was it protest art? Or was it simply one woman playing dress-up inside the ruins of her brand? The biggest irony? Meghan was using the very aesthetic of power to critique power. Suits, cigars, swagger, while still chasing approval from the very system she was mocking. That contradiction wasn't empowering. It was disorienting. And yet, in spite of the backlash Meghan pushed forward, she wasn't backing down. Not an inch. Her team edited teaser clips, sent them to blogs, tried to license the track on Spotify as a protest anthem. She reportedly even explored pitching the concept to indie festivals as a feminist short film. But for every pitch made, there were 3 rejections. For every DM sent, a scene left unanswered. What Meghan saw as disruption, others were beginning to label as delusion. When Netflix first caught wind of Meghan's unauthorized video shoot, they didn't panic, they prepared. Behind the scenes, a quiet army mobilized, legal counsels, compliance officers, crisis managers. While tabloids speculated, Netflix dissected. They reviewed her contract line by line, timestamp by timestamp, clause by clause. And when they found what they needed, they struck. A formal cease and desist letter was delivered to Meghan's team, not as a warning, but as a declaration. According to insiders, it was blisteringly clear. No sugarcoating, no polite corporate language. Just this, she had breached her agreement. Full stop. The letter cited the exact clause she had violated. Unauthorized use of company property, misuse of brand affiliation, and reputational damage. It listed consequences. It laid out next steps. And it made one thing undeniable. If the video was released, Netflix would pursue every legal option available. And what did Meghan's camp do? They laughed. Literally. One team member reportedly responded with an email gif of a woman sipping tea. Another source claimed they replied with a "we're not scared of lawyers" joke. To Meghan's camp, this wasn't war, it was theater. And the more dramatic Netflix became, the more they saw opportunity. Publicity, sympathy, narrative. They believed Netflix would never risk looking like the corporate Goliath crushing a woman's creative voice. That if they pushed hard enough, they could frame it as censorship. And with the clock ticking toward the contract's September expiration, they raced against time to finish post-production. Teasers were being cut, journalists were being pitched. Some claim Meghan was even planning a surprise live stream premiere, bypassing traditional platforms entirely. But Netflix wasn't bluffing. Behind the curtain, they were considering more than just legal action. Internal discussions began around shelving the 2nd season of With Love, Meghan. It wasn't just about punishment, it was about protection. Why invest more in someone willing to torch your house on the way out? Sources inside the company say the footage, hours of polished scenes, costly reshoots, emotionally charged interviews, was now on life support. And unless Meghan backed down, all of it would be deleted, gone, millions of dollars, vanished. And the message would be loud and clear: not even royalty is above the contract. For someone who once walked into rooms and lit them up, not just with presence, but with promise, Meghan Markle is now discovering what it feels like when the room goes quiet. Not hostile, just absent. The change didn't happen overnight. It began as a slow drift. Former colleagues, once quick to defend her, stopped replying to emails. PR agencies who fought for her media slots quietly moved on to the next headline, darling. Publicists who once whispered her name in every boardroom now skipped past it like a red flag. One former insider put it bluntly: she hasn't just lost the spotlight, she's lost the room. Even her most loyal allies, those who championed her feminist stance, applauded her royal exit, promoted her Spotify podcast, and praised her children's book, have grown tired. Not because they turned on her, but because the weight of the chaos became too heavy to carry. There's a name for it in the industry: brand fatigue. Every project, every press cycle, every reinvention, it always ends the same, with backlash, speculation, and silence. Meetings about Meghan now begin with eye rolls. Pitch decks with her photo quietly get deleted before the execs arrive. Even interns, insiders say, joke about the Meghan clause, meaning any unpredictable fallout you can't legally prepare for. And perhaps most telling of all, those who haven't walked away are staying quiet. No endorsements, no retweets, no rallying cries. Because in Hollywood, silence isn't just absence, it's strategy. And for Meghan, it may be the loudest alarm yet. Just when the headlines began to quiet, Meghan Markle re-entered them. Not with a comeback, but with a courtroom. In July 2025, Meghan filed a new lawsuit against a California-based paparazzi agency, claiming they had used drones to invade her privacy during a private hike near her Montecito home. Her legal team painted it as a blatant violation, an aggressive overstep into her personal sanctuary. But the story didn't land the way she expected. Within 48 hours, new details surfaced. The private hiking trail? Turns out it was a public reserve, open to tourists, dog walkers, and weekend joggers. And the footage in question? No high-tech drones, just zoom lenses, taken from a legal distance, according to the agency's defense. Suddenly, the narrative flipped. What began as a privacy violation transformed into a PR misstep. Critics accuse Meghan of exaggeration. Again, social media lit up with hashtags like #Trailgate and #Markle melodrama. Even longtime fans found themselves conflicted. Was she protecting her space or chasing another headline? The backlash snowballed as news outlets unearthed past legal battles. The lawsuit against the British tabloids, the Spotify fallout, the royal family tell-all. To some, this felt like another chapter in a growing pattern. Meghan, the perpetual victim. But this time, the public mood had shifted. No cheering, no mass sympathy, just fatigue. Because when every camera is an enemy, every reporter a threat, and every story a battle, even your allies start asking the one question no public figure wants to hear. What is she really running from? And now, as September looms and her Netflix contract crumbles to dust, Meghan Markle stands on the edge. Not of a comeback, but of a cliff. She once had the palace, then the platforms. Now all she has is the echo. What began as a fight to reclaim her voice has morphed into a performance no one's clapping for. The cameras are still there, but the spotlight has dimmed. The audience? Scattered. Even the critics seem too weary to speak. Meghan may still believe this is her revolution, but the industry sees something else. A slow-motion self-destruction wrapped in filters, hashtags, and high-budget tantrums. Because in Hollywood, reinvention requires strategy. Reinvention demands timing. And above all, reinvention needs trust. And that, she's spent. She may upload the video, she may stream it, sing it, spin it into a movement. But when it fades to black, what then? Because the truth is, even the loudest message falls flat when no one's left to listen. And in Meghan's case, the silence after the noise might just be the loudest chapter yet.